The soundproof barrier that had sealed off the back of the Mercedes for 10 years began to descend. The glass slid down with a mechanical hum, the red arrow glowing in the dark. Susan Lowe's hands, wrapped in black leather driving gloves, tightened on the wheel. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror, her face lit by the amber glow of the dashboard. Behind the partition, a silhouette in a bespoke suit sat motionless, barely visible. The intercom crackled. For 10 years, only a clipped thank you had ever come through.
Did you ever wonder why I hired you specifically?
His voice. After 10 years. Why now? What did he want? You've never spoken to me. Not like this.
But Susan Lowe, who had driven through rain, snow, and silence for 3,650 nights, could not move. But the question that night pulled at a thread Susan had wrapped tight for 10 years. Each morning, she left Jamal with the neighbor lady, a lump in her throat as he rocked in silence.
Okay, sweetheart. Let's try this one more time.
The sensory processing disorder cost more than her rent. Occupational therapy, speech therapy, special education, and the only way to afford it was a driving contract so strange she never told anyone. The agency called a decade ago, a private client, night drives only, 3 times the going rate. For 10 years, not a single word beyond a clipped thank you through the intercom.
I can't lose this job. Not now. Not when Jamal is so close to a breakthrough.
Every silent ride through Manhattan paid for another week of hope for her son. And now, the man who had never spoken wanted more than a thank you. But to understand the terror in Susan's eyes, you had to know the girl. She was at 19, pregnant and homeless. She spent her last month on a shelter cot, the due date a ticking clock.
I can't give her what she needs. I can't even give myself a home.
The labor came in the charity ward, and the baby's cry was the only sound she took with her. A social worker handed her a pen. The closed adoption meant she would never know her daughter's name.
I just want her to be safe. That's all.
She signed with a shaking hand, and they took the baby before Susan could count her fingers. The only thing she kept was a tiny gold bracelet, small enough to fit a doll.
Every year on her birthday, I take it out. I wonder if she's happy.
That wound had never healed, and the man in the back seat had just pressed on it.
Susan's voice came out unsteady, her knuckles white on the wheel as she forced the words out.
I know a great deal, Susan. More than you can imagine.
He knows my name. He knows my past. How deep does this go?
The words hung in the air like a verdict, thick and suffocating, pressing against her chest.
You have no right to dig into my personal life. Who are you, really?
No one sent me. I've been a part of your story far longer than you realize.
What does that even mean?
You placed a daughter for adoption in 2012. Her birthday was 3 days ago.
The Mercedes rolled on through the Manhattan night, wet pavement reflecting the blur of city lights, while the silence inside thickened like a third passenger, heavy and patient. But inside the car, that silence was deafening, a held breath before something irreversible and unknown.
Why do you know that? No one knows. That adoption was sealed.
I also know about Jamal, the triple pay contract that covers his therapy, the years you've driven through every storm.
You've been investigating me for years. That's why you hired me.
Mr. K leaned forward, just slightly, his silhouette breaking the dim light from the street lamps outside.
Not investigate, Susan. Protect. That contract was never random. It was the only way I could reach you without breaking the agreement.
What agreement? What are you talking about?
For the first time in 10 years, the man in the back seat appeared almost as vulnerable as she felt.
The closed adoption agreement. I've honored it for 17 years. But tonight, I need to tell you something that will change everything.
Change everything. He's been part of the adoption all along. This whole decade was a lie.
The Mercedes slowed, as if the engine itself were holding its breath, the weight of 17 years pressing against the soundproof glass that had kept so many secrets.
I am the father of a girl named Maya.
The name landed like a stone in still water. Susan's fingers went numb on the leather steering wheel.
Maya?
She was adopted at birth. My wife and I brought her home from the hospital, the day she was born. This is the only picture we have from that day. I've carried it ever since.
An adopted daughter, a baby girl. The dates. Could it be number? It's not possible.
Susan stared at the photograph, at the tiny baby wrapped in a yellow blanket, and her heart began to pound against her ribs.
Why are you showing me this?
Because Maya has been asking about her birth mother for a long time, and I think it's time you knew the truth.
The car remained still, the world outside reduced to a smear of rain and amber light, as the word truth hung between them like a fuse.
Is Maya mine?
The question cut through the silence like a blade, and for a long moment, the man in the back seat did not answer.
Yes.
A single syllable that cracked 17 years of silence, and Susan Lowe, the woman who never broke, shattered. She pulled the Mercedes to the curb on a dark side street, her vision swimming, the weight of it all pressing down on her chest.
We adopted her through a closed agency. Your name was never in the file, but I found you anyway.
There was a tremor in his voice now, the first crack in his composed exterior.
I thought about her every day. Every single day for 17 years.
Inside the car, two strangers separated by a decade of silence sat in the dark, finally bound by the same grief, and the engine idled, waiting, because the girl who had been the secret all along was out there, and she was done waiting.
After we adopted Maya, I couldn't stop thinking about you. So I hired a private investigator.
It took him 2 years to find a woman named Susan Lowe living in Queens, working 2 jobs, raising an autistic son alone.
The closed adoption meant I couldn't contact you directly. Any breach could have cost me custody.
So you made me your driver. For 10 years?
It was the only way. I could ensure you had enough for Jamal's therapy without breaking the law.
Every emergency, every late-night drive, you knew. You were always watching.
The truth settled over her, heavy and strange. The contract was never a job, but a carefully disguised lifeline.
I never intended to keep it from you this long, but Maya started asking questions when she turned 16.
What does she know about me?
The question hung in the idling car, the silence now filled with the weight of a girl who had waited 17 years.
She knows you exist. I told her the truth 6 months ago.
You told her about me? After all these years?
She asked me why her birth mother gave her up. I told her the truth, that you were homeless and alone, and you wanted her to live.
He reached into his coat and produced a folded envelope, the paper soft and worn at the edges.
She wrote this for you a month ago. I've been carrying it ever since, waiting for the right moment.
Susan's gloved hand trembled as she took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in careful, looping teenage script. She opened it. The words inside blurred, but the first line read, "Dear Susan, I know you must be scared. I am too."
She wrote to me she wants to meet, after everything.
She wants to meet you, if you are willing. There's an address.
But Susan could not speak. The letter, the address, the 17 years, they pressed against her throat, and no word came out.
I don't blame you. I just want to know you.
The words she had waited 17 years to hear finally sliced through the silence.
I am going to meet her. After everything, I am going to meet my daughter. Take me to her. Whatever the address is, just tell me where to go.
Brooklyn Heights. I'll direct you.
Susan put the Mercedes in gear, the letter still clutched in her gloved hand as she pulled away from the curb. The partition stayed down. For the first time in 10 years, they were simply two people heading toward the same hope. The fear was still there, cold and heavy in her chest, but beneath it a stubborn ember of hope began to glow. In the back seat, Mr. K remained silent, watching the woman he'd secretly supported for a decade finally drive toward her own life. And outside the windows, the city smeared into streaks of amber and neon, carrying her closer to a brownstone she had never seen. The Mercedes crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, the cables sweeping overhead like a harp of light.
Tell me about her. I need to know who she is.
Maya has a habit of sketching in the margins of everything. Her school books, her phone case, even the grocery lists.
In the rear view, Susan caught the faintest smile on the man's face, the first real expression she'd ever seen.
She looks like her mother. My wife, that is. But she has your hands. I noticed the first time I saw you drive.
My hands. She has my hands.
The car tires hummed over the bridge grates, the rhythm syncing with Susan's racing pulse.
She wants to know why you chose her name. I never had an answer.
I didn't choose it. The social worker picked Maya. But I liked it. It means water in Hebrew.
And just like water, 17 years of grief and hope were now rushing toward a single point on a quiet street in Brooklyn. The phone on the passenger seat lit up, the name Jamal's therapist glowing in the dark.
Hello? What happened? No, I am not home. How long?
The voice on the other end was strained. Jamal was in a full sensory crisis, inconsolable.
Not now. Not Jamal. I can't leave him alone again. It's my son. He's having a meltdown. His therapist says he needs me. I have to turn around.
Number. Give me the therapist's number.
In 3 swift sentences, he had dispatched a private pediatric nurse to the therapist's office, all charges covered.
She'll be there in 10 minutes. Jamal will have specialist care tonight. You have my word.
He's always taking care of things before I even ask. But he's not his mother. I should be there.
But the car did not turn. The engine hummed, and the taillights of Brooklyn drew closer as Susan's heart split between 2 children. Susan's grip on the wheel turned white as she stared at the phone screen. The call ended, but the weight of it pressing on her chest.
Jamal will be safe. I've made sure of it, but Maya is on those steps right now, and she's been waiting half her life.
The words cut through the panic like a cold blade, sobering her.
Half her life. And I've been waiting even longer.
The tears she'd been holding back slipped free, silent and hot.
I can't let her wait anymore.
She nodded. Once, a small motion that carried the weight of 17 years. Her foot pressed the accelerator, and the Mercedes surged forward into the Brooklyn night.
You are doing the right thing. Susan, she needs to know you.
And though guilt for Jamal still gnawed at her, for the first time in a decade, she was driving towards something she chose. Not something she had to endure. The Mercedes turned onto a narrow, tree-lined street in Brooklyn Heights, the brownstones standing quiet in the rain.
There. The one with the ivy on the railing.
Susan's breath caught in her throat as her eyes followed his gesture. And there, on the top step, illuminated by a single porch light, sat a teenage girl. She hugged her knees, her curls damp from the drizzle, her gaze fixed on the approaching car.
She looks just like I did at her age. Same posture, same waiting.
Susan's hands, still in the black leather gloves, began to tremble on the wheel. The car idled at the curb, but she couldn't make herself turn the engine off. Maya didn't move. She just watched the car, as if she knew exactly who was inside, and for a long, suspended moment, the only sound was the rain drumming on the roof. 2 minutes passed. In the idling car, neither of them moved. The rain filled the silence like a held breath. Through the rain-streaked windshield, the girl on the steps had not shifted. She was still watching the car.
She's just a kid. What if she blames me? What if she looks at me and sees nothing but the woman who gave her away? I am scared she'll hate me.
She's been drawing pictures of you all her life.
All her life? She's been drawing me? She's been waiting for me all this time.
Something deep in her chest cracked open. The fear was still there, but it was no longer the loudest voice. Her gloved hand moved to the door handle, then stopped, trembling an inch from the latch.
Go. She's been waiting 17 years for this.
Susan let out a breath. She felt she'd been holding for 17 years. Then her fingers tightened on the handle. The car door opened with a solid, heavy click that echoed through the quiet street. One patent leather pump touched the wet asphalt, a small puddle shattering around the sole. On the steps, Maya's head lifted, her dark eyes widening as she took in the woman emerging from the Mercedes. Susan stood beside the open door, the rain misting her chauffeur's cap. Unable to look away, Maya slowly uncurled her legs, her sneakers scraping the wet stone as she rose.
It's her. It's really her.
Susan took a step, then another, her heels clicking with the deliberate care of someone walking on glass. Maya took a half step down, her breath forming a small cloud in the cold air. Now they were close enough to count the freckles on each other's cheeks. And in that suspended silence, 17 years of separation narrowed to a single, unspoken word. She kept walking, each heel strike a deliberate announcement into the hush. She was really here after all. Maya remained frozen on the step, her knuckles white on the iron railing, her entire body still.
She's so tall. She was just a baby the last time I saw her. Now she's a whole person.
The gap between them closed. 14 feet, 10, 6, with only the rhythmic click of her heels. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened, reflecting the porch light like a silver runway. Maya took one more step down, silent, her eyes never wavering from Susan's face. They were close enough now to see the unshed tears trembling in each other's eyes. Susan's gloved hand lifted halfway, trembling, as if afraid to break the spell between them. Maya's lips parted, a silent breath, a nod that said everything. And in that fragile inch of air between their reaching fingers, 17 years dissolved into a single breath.
Mom?
The word cracked through Susan like lightning, a name she never thought she'd hear.
Oh, baby. My baby.
They fell together, arms locking, the force of 17 years collapsing between them. Susan's gloved hands pressed into Maya's back, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Maya buried her face in the curve of Susan's neck, her own tears mixing with the damp of the night. Inside the Mercedes, Mr. K sat motionless, tears streaming freely down his face. He had waited 10 years for this moment, and even he hadn't imagined the weight of its beauty. On the wet pavement, under the porch light, mother and daughter held each other as if trying to merge into one. And in that holding, the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the sound of two hearts beating together.
I knew you'd come back. I just felt it.
Susan's gloved thumbs wiped the tears from Maya's cheeks, the leather catching the dampness.
I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day.
Dad showed me your picture. The one from the hospital. I've kept it under my pillow.
The Mercedes door opened behind them, and Mr. K stepped out, staying close to the car, not wanting to intrude.
Your father. He's been keeping both of us afloat. I didn't even know.
He's like that. He never tells anyone what he's doing.
Mr. K's eyes met Susan's over Maya's shoulder, and in that glance passed 10 years of silent gratitude. Susan wrapped her arm around Maya's shoulders, and they turned together toward the brownstone steps, Mr. K falling in beside them. On that quiet Brooklyn street, something broken 17 years ago had finally begun to mend. Susan paused on the steps and turned back to the man who had driven in silence beside her for a decade. Without a word, she extended her gloved hand toward him, palm open, an invitation. Mr. K looked at her outstretched hand, then at Maya, and finally placed his fingers into hers. She drew his hand down until it rested over hers, and Maya's, the three of them interlaced.
Thank you for keeping me alive.
For a moment, Mr. K's composure broke entirely. His jaw clenched, and a tear traced the deep line of his cheek.
I wish I could have done more.
You gave me my daughter. You gave Jamal a chance. That's everything.
Maya slipped her arm around her father's waist, pulling him into the circle, her smile watery but whole. And on those wet stone steps, the woman who had driven this man for 10 years finally understood. The contract had never been about the ride. It had always been about the return. The Mercedes rolled through Brooklyn as the sky turned pale with morning. On the passenger seat, her cap and gloves lay together for the first time in a decade. She glanced up at the rearview mirror and saw a face streaked with tears, but whole. Her phone lit up with a text from the man who had ridden in silence. Maya wants to come by tomorrow. She'd like to meet Jamal. So would I, if that's all right. Susan let out a breath that turned into a quiet laugh, the sound filling the empty car. The intercom panel stayed dark, the partition down, the decade of distance now closed. Outside, the sun broke over the brownstones, washing the wet street in gold. And in the rearview mirror, Susan Lowe finally looked at herself the way Maya had always seen her, whole, worthy, and found. The Mercedes turned onto a sunlit avenue in Queens, the last of the rain evaporating in the morning heat. Inside, Susan's hands rested lightly on the wheel, her chauffeur's cap still on the passenger seat. She glanced into the rearview mirror, and the face she saw was calm, a faint smile at the corners of her lips. The eyes that looked back were still glossy with tears, but they held a peace she had never known. The back seat was empty, the partition fully down, the space behind her no longer a question. She signaled left and turned onto her own street, the familiar brownstones bathed in gold. Susan parked the Mercedes and sat for a moment, her gaze on the rearview mirror once more. In the reflection, she saw not just a driver, but a mother who had finally reached the end of a long road. And then she turned off the engine, and the only sound was the quiet possibility of tomorrow. The street waited, and for the first time in 10 years, Susan Lowe was ready to meet it.